Do it right again.
So we are now live, if I didn't screw it up. Looks like it. All right, so opinions so far.
So nothing is being marked nullable here.
That's because everything's
generic.
That a reference type is has either is like the arguments of the the constructor can't be null, and everything that takes a T, it's subject to all the generic stuff. So yeah.
I was told this would be hard.
Generics, the things that are generics based are either really easy or really hard. There's nothing in between.
Jeremy, you're really quiet. I think you said something.
And so blocking collection looks like it throws if the iProducer consumer collection is null. So those should be. Oh, those are non-nullable. Okay, never mind. I'm looking for question marks, not bang.
Correct.
Right, and then copy to and add to any will throw, presumably, if the collections is null.
Yeah, I don't think they accept nulls inside the collections.
Okay. And we'll return an empty array for toArray?
No, we never return empty arrays from toArray.
So copy to is going to be a bit interesting, because say that I instantiate blocking collection with T is string, not nullable string, but just string. Copy to nullable string array should succeed, correct?
So what is now the array itself?
So just saying that the T should be more relaxed than
yes, because it's kind of, well, not necessarily, because if T is a value type, things go screwy. So implicit in my question is an assumption. Maybe my assumption's wrong. Someone can tell me. It's possible to instantiate a blocking collection of string, and it's possible to instantiate a blocking collection of string question mark. Correct?
Yes.
And they're both the same thing under the covers, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
If I instantiate,
yeah, I mean, if you're saying the question is, you want to do basically blocking collection of string dot copy to string question mark array.
Correct, because that should work.
Well, the thing is that we don't have any way to tell the compiler that copy to isn't going to try and read an element out of that array.
Right, but semantically, like from
so it's a variance
should,
thing, right?
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, from the call site, it should work, because it's, like you said, it's out, it's write only.
But we don't have any way to express that.
Right. That's the problem, is that we can't express.
Is that a deficiency in the system that needs to be addressed before it ships?
I think that's kind of a limitation of the type system.
I think in that case you use exclamation point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bandit.
That's kind of why they have that feature.
I mean, I think the question is, do we need is it worth having another attribute to describe that this one should accept a variance on that type?
Basically, it would be an attribute to express variance that normally isn't there in a T.
Something like that, yeah.
It feels to me like it should be equivalent to the allow null, except the allow null should be more expressive on what you actually...
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is this scenario logically should work. What does a developer have to type in order to make it work? And is it unreasonable to expect a developer to have to type that?
I mean, in terms of, regardless of whatever the solution that we would come up with, it wouldn't ship. Okay. There's not enough time for that to ship.
If we just made something like allow null type of T or something,
I would
possibly.
I would say
right.
We could potentially do something like that. I would say that would be a post.
Yeah, but we can ship the attribute itself, but we might not make it work yet.
Well, then why ship the attribute?
So that we can fix the compiler later and it just works.
But it doesn't help anybody.
But if we
don't have to replace assemblies.
Well, if we were to do this later, theoretically, would the API still look like this, I guess? It sounds like the answer is yes, so we should just let this go as is.
Whatever we would do, we couldn't break the existing API, right? Like whatever we do has to work for this.
Okay.
Yeah, basically it's just a bunch of custom attributes slapped around that API, right?
Can the developer at least work around it for now?
Yeah,
It sounds
with
like the
bang.
answer is yes through a
Yeah,
bang.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can put a bang.
instead of saying c.copy to foo, they say c.copy to foo !
Okay. So it's a one character change. Okay.
Yeah, and then if we add the ability to annotate variants later, then presumably we'll also get a new warning, potential warning waves that says, "Hey, you can remove this now."
Okay.
Would it be foo bang, or would it be a cast to t bang of, or
It would be
t bang
foo bang.
array?
Foo bang. I mean, you could first cast it, but to cast it, you would still need to add the exclamation point.
Okay,
can
but I
also
thought that
pragmatism.
foo bang would say that I promise the array isn't null, but the problem is the array is already
Bang
non-null.
silences
but
nullable warnings. The bang is the nullable suppression operator.
Just in general.
Basically,
for
the problem in this case is the type mismatch going from a string question mark array to a string array,
Yeah.
and so the bang on the foo basically says ignore warnings related to the type of this thing.
Okay.
Okay.
That's better than I thought it was.
Yeah, that seems pretty straightforward then. Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to rat hole on this too much. I just wanted to make sure like this is feasible. Okay.
Yeah, I mean the attributes that we have and that are currently being implemented in the compiler and that we've plumbed through Corelib, they're all sort of top level. We don't have anything that deals with annotating the T that's part of an array or whatever, other than constraints like the not null constraint.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and you also have the case of like, what if it's a T array, multi-dimensional array, and then you want to annotate.
But you only want to annotate T because you can already annotate the outer arrays, right? So only the T is actually relevant, so probably allow null type of T or something.
Maybe.
That's what I'm thinking, but we'd have to think about some edge cases. That's probably more for like a language design thing.
Right.
This all seems reasonable so far.
I mean, you say red hole, but like the whole meeting is a red hole, right? Like that's kind of the point of these meetings. So that means maybe the API review is actually fast because it's all generic, so not much for us to do.
I have one question real quick. On take from any, so normally we annotate for, if this was a reference type, we would annotate T as not null when condition. Is there any annotation for that for when it's purely generic and we want to say like, if this is a reference type, then item shouldn't be null?
I mean, like the out? Yeah, I thought the out had an attribute for either case.
This doesn't have the attributes, but on take from any, there's a maybe null and false on out item, on out T item.
Okay.
Yeah, so I feel like I probably have to do some coding at some point to actually show the attributes and not like the... Right now when you do a diff with attributes, it just hangs. Oh boy.
How does out T... How did you say that works, Steve? When you have out T?
We have a few attributes that we can apply in these situations, and for generics, generally when you have a generic out T, we'll apply, in a try pattern, we'll apply an attribute maybe null when false, which basically, actually, I just realized it's not going to work here. The attribute's bogus. Because this doesn't return bool, this returns an int.
Yeah, that is what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so we don't have any way to express this.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to delete these attributes, and they're basically, we'll have to add maybe null, basically. So it'll be attributed with maybe null, and people are going to have to bang when they use it.
Or do a check for null that will never fail.
Right.
Choice.
Maybe the compiler needs a improved detection that it should be angry if that attribute's applied on a non-Boolean return.
Well, yeah, part of the issue, it very well might, part of the problem is we added all these attributes several weeks before there was any compiler support. So
Could we
it was
do nullable disable on
unverified.
those couple of APIs which are like pretty much gonna be bunked all the time?
Say again.
Could we do like nullable disable on those 4 members which are?
So opt the APIs out of nullability in general.
Yeah,
Basically-
make them oblivious.
Because it seems like
Which API? Sorry.
suck basically. The
The
try
try
take
take
from any
from any-
and
I mean, we could. It's a question of more warnings, more false positives or more false negatives, which is
Yeah.
worse.
It might be just worth discussing with the compiler team later, like for post 3.0, if there's a way we can better express common annotations like not null when negative or when positive.
But you have the option to just opt out this one parameter, right? Based on how you put the pragma.
You could opt out just the one parameter, yes.
Yeah. Which doesn't seem unreasonable, right?
I mean, we had the same thing in other places, like methods that have to be defined to return nullable, but have a boolean that indicate whether it will actually be nullable or not, like type.getType. Right? There's a throw-on error argument, and if it's true, it'll never return null. If it's false,
Right.
it might return. And so today, you're just always going to have to null check the result. This is very similar, right? This is, regardless of what this returns, you're going to have to null check the result. Alternatively, if we made it oblivious, you won't have to null check the result, but you also might try and dereference it when it's null.
I feel like the former is certainly more safe than the latter.
Making the parameter oblivious.
Yeah, I'd rather not pragma disable.
Making it not.
Okay.
I'd much rather get the additional warnings and safety and have to bang them away than scatter pragmas on individual parameters in the code base.
So what
tell
does-
users to do that when they have the same thing.
So what
We've
does
tried very, very hard not to use nullable disable. The only place that we've used it thus far has been in a place where we could not. The user experience was so bad that we had to use it, basically.
So how does this method signature change then?
There's going to be a maybe null on the out T item.
Okay.
And maybe in the future, if we work with the compiler, we could get another attribute that could replace maybe null to express it correctly. Because I imagine there's a few cases like this that would be effectively maybe null when negative or
Right.
something.
I mean, we had talked about having a changing maybe null when bool to instead be maybe null when object, and the compiler would allow you to use any constant expression that you could put in there, in metadata, and then if the compiler saw that value used as a constant in a comparison, like if try take from any equals -1, then it would be able to compare that against the constant that was in the attribute. And so it would apply not just to true and false, but to things like -1.
Sure.
And so that was scoped out, but you could imagine that being added subsequently, and then it should be a non-breaking change to update the attributes in that direction, because it would just mean that people have more exclamation points than they need.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just looking on dictionary to see how it looks there as an example. Okay.
Dictionary is a case where it's a bool, and so we use maybe null and false. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm actually interested to see, we have a PR. I just finished, or I'm about to finish absorbing the compiler changes that enable most of the attributes in CoreLib. I'm about to do the same in CoreFX, and I'm curious to see if it flags these mistakes I made with maybe null and false on something that doesn't return a bool.
I mean, I would be shocked if you didn't. I mean, considering how large the API service is.
Okay.
And I just copy paste for the most part. All right, concurrent bag I think looks fine too, considering what we just said.
the try pick in the try take.
Yeah, it has the same problem.
From looking at the arcade update PR, it doesn't seem like it flags those cases. All the builds are green.
Try peek and try take don't have the same problem because we've got maybe null when false.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that we have to update them.
Yeah.
He said there's no attributes.
Would those attributes show up in the diff here? No. Okay.
The tool doesn't. supported yet. Like I turn them off. As soon as I turn them on, like the tool never comes back.
Yeah.
So there's a bug.
But everything is attributed on source, so you can, if you're curious, you can go into source.net and we show the attribute.
Well, but these haven't been checked in yet, though, correct?
No, they are on there.
So this is now where T key is non-null?
Not null.
Not
Yeah.
null? Was it non-null?
And that's already been changed.
Not null.
Not null.
Not null.
Okay. Okay.
To be consistent with everywhere else that we use the not null.
So let me actually write this down because I think there's 2 bugs I have to fix: the attributes and then the not null.
The not null, I already fixed it. You just need to get
Yeah, to pull the latest version out. Okay. But UPR is not merged yet, right? I still have to, yeah.
Sorry, which PR is not merged yet?
the one for Gen API to understand nullability.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And compare null is default compare, correct?
Correct.
Did we change concurrent dictionary to accept null in core? Because it looks like framework throws if it's null for the comparers.
Oh, for the compare.
Interesting.
Because I would have thought that the first constructor forwards to the second one with null, like most of our APIs do.
I mean, that's exactly what it does.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I see in framework, concurrent dictionary of int comparer calls an internal constructor without doing a null cascade, and then in that internal constructor it says if comparer is null, throw argument null exception comparer.
Here is here we also fall to an internal constructor, but we do default the compare if it is null.
Yeah.
In core.
Okay. Do we care that framework didn't allow null?
I don't think so.
Yeah, nullable annotations don't work for framework. Well, not officially supported for framework.
But it sounds like we just want the more relaxed of the two anyway, right?
Why? I mean, why? You're only going to be using nullable annotations with core and officially supported scenarios, so why not just follow what core does?
Okay, sure.
Can always fix framework.
No, we
Sure.
can't.
Sure we can.
It's painful. It's possible.
Sounds like you just signed up to SimShip another version of the framework with Windows. I'll be elsewhere doing other
I don't want to
things.
do any framework work.
Just to answer your question, Jeremy, it was fixed for .NET Core 2.0 as a bug fix.
By the way, regarding the variance thing that I mentioned earlier, in theory, things like add value factory and update value factory, the T key argument could be T key question mark. Because in theory, null's allowed there. Because it's
No, it's not.
variant.
T key is constrained to be not null.
No. I mean, add value factory and update value factory. Why shouldn't I be able to pass a delegate that has T key question mark? as its input parameter.
Right, because we're
It's
just going to
covariance.
pass non-null ones.
Yeah, it's basically covariance.
Sure.
I think that actually might be allowed already, but I'm
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that we would, if the language support for it right now doesn't exist, maybe it's just something that can be thrown onto the pile just because it's something that ideally should just work.
That said, I'm having trouble imagining a situation where you would actually want that. In this particular case, it's super rare to reuse one of these functions across, usually they're just lambdas. So you'd be adding extra question marks into your lambda that were unnecessary.
Well, if you're taking T-key and passing it into other APIs that are typed as allow nullables, then it would be easier just to declare the lambda once ahead of time with it.
There's also probably some like WPF cases with notify property changed where you might be reusing a single thing and checking the name, as some people do.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a bit esoteric, but
yeah.
Levi, in your case, if the lambda said it doesn't accept null, it's still allowed to call functions that say that they do accept null. It's the other way that requires bangs. So I think
yes, you're right. Never mind. Okay.
And for func, I believe you should be able to, if t value was nullable, I believe you should be able to pass in a factory that returns not nullable in it.
Right, it's just you can't bind a non-nullable delegate to a nullable delegate.
Yeah, if t key was nullable and you passed in a func that doesn't take nullable,
yeah.
you should. Let's
move on.
Like that.
I'm trying to find the minute.
Yeah, but I think he has to use the arrow keys or he gets the high DPI assert.
Well, if I can, so scrolling down works, scrolling left and right. And this is a bug that I can't claim. This is a bug in the dev10 editor. All right, so.
Okay, and then we said toArray returns
empty.
Yeah, empty, not null, right? If the collection's empty.
Yeah, if we have toArray returning null anywhere in the framework, that's a bug.
Okay.
Should any of the try add, try get, try remove, do they have the attribute?
Try get value, try remove, both have maybe null when false.
Yeah.
On key or on value?
On t value.
On the out.
Yeah.
And then the t key.
It's just t key.
It's constrained. Okay.
No, this is concurrent key. Oh no, this is dictionary. Yeah, that's fine. It's constrained.
It's constrained, and then they'll actually throw when we pass in null, or will they just not work?
No, they do throw.
They throw. Okay.
They throw.
Okay. Try to queue and try peek have the attribute?
Maybe null and false. Yeah. Same for stack. Try peek. Try pop.
And our rule is if you use exclamation marks to put garbage in, you'll get garbage out, and we don't care, right?
Right.
So concurrent queue, you can force in queue and null, and then the API would be lying, but you're the one who cheated.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. We don't change anything in the runtime.
Okay, just making sure again.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'd have to basically say that every out position was nullable. everything.
So try pop range. What's the behavior? Like, is the expectation that the array must be fully filled, and if it's not the case, you return what?
It returns the number of items that it filled.
So that means the array. So what are the other ones? You set them to null, or you just don't let them? You don't change the content.
We don't change the content. So I mean, the typical use case would be you have your pre-allocated array, and you just continually pop into it,
right?
And it tells you how many it filled.
Yeah, I think we should generally view that case as it's no different than span, in that you can only fill the slice. You'll only touch the slice of whatever the span is viewing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just thinking of like, if the behavior would have been we set the other ones to null, then that's another example where we can't really express ourselves in the runtime system. But it seems like in this case, it's just, well, whatever the caller set the array to, right? If they set everything to ones or zeros, then so be it. Their call, it's their API, or it's their instance of it. What generally happens today? Does anybody know with the IDE team when I'm actually implementing an interface, do they copy the entire signature, including attributes? For example, if we say maybe null on try take, and I implement the interface, do I get maybe null as well? Is Emma on the hook to like copy and paste it myself?
I don't know. We should.
Yeah, because if since you have to re-annotate, I think we said, then the IDE should definitely be propagating those.
Yes.
And attributes.
I think
so I've ever actually used the IDE to implement an interface that had an attribute on it. Yeah. Or if I've ever used an interface whose member had an attribute on it.
I don't think I'm pretty sure it doesn't propagate attributes by default, because I've used that with common drop before, and it definitely doesn't propagate those.
I mean, the compiler might do this special things for those, but we don't really know it. But, yeah.
Well, we should probably special case these attributes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these attributes
should be copying.
Yeah. Things that are semantically relevant to the compiler should be propagated if they're not transitively used.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to propagate them. The compiler can search for the attributes when it's.
It doesn't do that today.
I don't know, but for the nullable feature only.
No, the idea is actually that you have to propagate them, because you could have an attribute say allow null.
I see.
That you want,
so
or
that
maybe null.
sounds to me like there should be a way of expressing the attributes. Should be printable or whatever.
Well, we talked about this when we looked at the attributes. Yeah. It's impossible to design that in such a way because inheritance doesn't work in that way. Because imagine, for your example, you have like 3 arguments, and you want to change the behavior of one of them. Like, what would you express that? At that point, you have to copy everything down. But now if you copy everything down, what does omission now mean? Do you inherit the parameter from the previous one, or do you just is not being there in our statement of is not being there?
Yeah, and
it's not something that you can easily express. I think in general, like, I'm okay with them having to be copy and pasted down. It's just,
I think in my mind it was simpler. Basically, like, you mark the attribute the same way as you say, okay, this can applies to methods. So the same way you say, okay, this can be inherited. I mean, does are inherited by default. And,
yeah,
but
I can point into the discussion, like,
this doesn't cover those cases.
You can't express that.
Well, and then the other case is if you're propagating and then your reference assembly changes and they decided to change something upstream, then, like, you now get you may get a silent change in behavior, or you may get a warning depending on what exactly changed, and you probably want to be notified most of the time.
And this sounds like a complicated to express.
Yes. Man, you certainly like generics in this API. iList of enumerator of key value pair of long comma t source.
Yeah, this is not link.
I guess that makes sense.
Have you reviewed Link yet?
No, because it's
No, we're not
called.
doing it for this release.
And Dan promised us liquor when we do that, so I will pick him up on that. I think the rules for Link is every time it's a generic parameter, we all do shots. I think that's all that works.
We're going to die
I don't
of
like
alcohol
that.
poisoning.
That will take a while.
We need more than one bottle.
Yeah, we'll live stream it and then we'll just end up like passed out on
You
camera.
have to be like a really large barrel and we have to have a lot of meetings.
And that indeed would be streamed for 2 days. We were setting this.
By the way, that's according to Twitch, at least against their guidelines. You can't actually stream you drinking.
Yeah, but we stream to YouTube.
I like the way you think. All right. That looks reasonable. Anybody else any feedback? Otherwise, I call that reviewed.
Yeah, no, I think
It's done. So that means I can literally write looks good as is.
Well, we just need to fix the attributes.
yeah, the
Yeah,
couple.
but that's true across the board, right? Like we haven't looked at attributes at all.
No.
There was a couple.
I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
What is the one thing?
The APIs that return int
Oh,
rather
those
than
ones.
bool, we need to change it
Yeah.
to maybe null.
So that's true, but like I said, I don't care about those because they have to review the attributes at all. So we have to look at the whole thing anyway. So that is fine. All right. So then let me get this over. Whoa, that is very big. All right. So did we do buffers yet? No, right?
No.
All right. Then let's do buffers.
Buffers is very simple.
You just
It has
took
no
the next.
annotations. Like it didn't have any question mark.
Oh, it's also very short, so that's fine. All right. So buffer should be indeed fast.
Something the laptop is.
It's flying, yeah.
What are you doing? Are you building something?
Yeah.
Are you streaming? Like,
He's emulating your laptop.
yeah, mine does all the work. I don't know what's happening. It's my
Mine
website.
Bitcoin.
All right. That seems.
Yeah.
Sounds complicated.
Very reasonable.
So what's the behavior when?
I like it.
Don't we have some cases where rent fails? Do we just throw in
It
that
throws.
case?
Yeah, it
Throws?
does. And return in every implementation requires the input array to be nullable.
But not necessarily of minimum length. Right?
Correct. You can return any array that you want to.
I mean, it's fine for return to throw if you give it an array that it didn't give you.
Yes.
Mhm.
At the moment, I don't think we have any implementations that do that, but we were considering putting a diagnostic mode in the runtime where the array pool would throw if you double returned or returned an array that didn't belong to it
Yeah.
or so on.
Okay.
It was
I
just
mean,
something
we
go back
do
and look.
actually, if you give it an array of length like 4, I think will throw because into
Okay.
the shared one because there's no bucket that it'll fit into.
Nice.
Right. If you give it array, it couldn't have produced.
Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. If you return one of the right length that came from a different pool instance or whatever.
Oh,
it
look at
doesn't.
that. You're right. Okay. You're right, yeah. If it can't figure out what bucket the array goes into, it throws. Okay. I somehow missed that behavior. Nice.
I don't look like I'm doing something, but I'm actually doing something. I can see if everybody looks at me. It's like, what's going on? What's going on? Here we go.
We trust you, Emma.
Emma's just goofing off on his laptop.
Yeah, I'm just secretly playing video games. That's why his laptop is going crazy because we're both playing a game right now.
Diagnostic tools.
We both allow and return null for these rather than empty string
Or what?
Suppress message attribute.
for both of them.
We just return whatever you pass in the constructor.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, so the code analysis one is just, you're right, simple reflection.
Right, but our previous rule, or our usual rule with the attributes is if we don't think it makes any sense for you to have declared it with the null literal, then we say it's non-null, even if it would work.
Yeah.
And
That's what
so
we
for
did.
generated code attribute, I looked through a bunch of uses and I found a bunch where version is null. So that one I think made a lot of sense to be string question mark. I couldn't find any where tool was null, but I sort of imagined places where someone might want to slap generated code onto it and not be specific about what created it. So
Could we
it
not
seemed
just
to make sense.
would empty string not be better in that case to encourage that instead?
Well, it's a question of this has been out here for 20 years, so I think it's a question of not necessarily what we want, but what have people done.
Okay.
And I don't know. I only looked at our own code. So in our own code, I found cases where version was null. I didn't find any in our own code where tool was null, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that we were deciding what we were deciding why, and it sounds like this is similar to toString.
Mm-hmm.
I guess one question then is, do we want to start with it non-null and make it null later? Or do we want to start with
for
it,
tool?
Yeah, or do we want to start with it null and make it not null? If we find out in 5.
Yeah, it might be easier to make it not null and then relax it.
I mean,
We would
the
be
problem
making.
would be you would get tooling tell you that you can always depend on tool being not null, but if people in the wild are generating it with null, then now like we've lied. So saying it could be null when we don't know of a case where it would be is probably better.
Yeah, I mean the relaxing thing is an issue because we have both an in position and an out position here that need to match.
Yeah.
Yeah, either one you have a breaking change. Might as well start with the one that we think is right.
We could make the property, the out position, say it's nullable, and make the parameter say that it's non-nullable, but that seems artificial.
Yeah.
And I think that most people who are using generated code attribute are just generating their generated code attribute, so they probably wouldn't even notice the decoration. It's when they're reading they would see them.
Well, anything else on the screen anybody takes offense to? Justification, message ID, scope, target. Looks all reasonable to me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't properties like that have to be nullable string anyway because they're initialized to default of T? Like, isn't that not up for debate?
Wait,
The last 4 on the screen. You mean?
Yeah, the last 4. Like,
yeah, those are almost. Those are very frequently null.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to be. I mean, like the constructor can decide to set them wherever they want, right? I mean, they can just be empty string, and they have done this in other places.
Okay.
I think for attributes it doesn't matter realistically because, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if we were reconsidering those design discussions as part of this run. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a 1-2 way of doing it.
Okay, sounds good.
Right, then we're done with this one then. Are we done with this one? Let me throw up the tracing one.
You made the text file.
What? Display unit isn't a Boolean?
It's funny you say that. Somebody else recently said that. Oh no, I know who it was. It was you.
I know.
That one just changed, right? Didn't that just change to be string instead of string question mark?
I don't think we made a decision one way or the other. I think I don't remember what. Did anybody remember what they said? Do you think that they said that it's not null?
I think they said it was not null in this week's review.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we agreed we would change it to be empty string. Is what they would return.
So that would mean.
So you set that rule and then you get empty string back, or you throw a new.
Good thing I made the joke.
We'd have to look at what the implementation does, but either way, it's not
I think
nullable.
it's already up for PR. There's a PR. Pretty sure that I reviewed that changed that.
Is So looking through the code, I don't see anything that forbids a null value being added to metadata. Maybe it's not the intent that people do that, but I don't see anything that explicitly forbids it.
For key or value or both?
For value specifically. Key is going to throw if you pass a null because under the covers it gets added to a dictionary.
Is it possible that the code which uses it will throw later?
No, I'm looking at the one and only usage of it.
And I think it makes sense in some cases for metadata to be null because someone might want to differentiate between no value is provided or a value is actually provided.
Yeah, null is treated the same as empty string when you add it to the metadata.
That sounds like it should probably be null.
Yeah. I don't know if it was a mistake that it's treated like that, it's just that's the implementation.
I think that is generally how we do key-value pairs. I think key is almost never allowed to be null,
Right.
and value is almost always allowed to be null.
Okay.
So it seems consistent with what we generally do.
Where's the metadata used?
It looks like, so there's a get metadata string method inside of diagnostic counter. It looks like when it's being written to the event source, there's a metadata property on the counter payload object, and that property is just a string. And it gets the metadata dictionary gets serialized as, for every key value tuple, gets serialized as key : value, comma, and null and empty values are just empty string normalized at that point. So it becomes a bunch of A : B, comma, C : D, comma, da da da, and that gets written out somewhere.
I see. Another follow-up from this meeting is to fix this implementation to not allocate so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think given the key would throw, it's correct to be not null. Value being null, like it functions if it's null, so maybe that one should be nullable.
Although it would probably require a functional change because otherwise it's going to show up as empty in the. Might look well. I guess it doesn't. Maybe the same as empty. I was going to say it'd be weird if you see key : comma. But
that's already that's what null and empty are both going to do.
Right.
So since null works and has a behavior that you can't distinguish from the next best thing, which is the empty string, right. I think saying that they're both not null would just confuse people if they felt that they wanted to add null. Granted, they wouldn't be able to get it back from however you're supposed to get them back. But, so I go either way. But,
yeah.
Nullable is more honest.
Yeah, I don't see a way in the code to get back the individual key value strings that were passed in. The only thing I'm able to see is a way to get the aggregate of all of them together, already concatenated.
Yeah, nullable. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Should everyone agree? So.
Should message just be empty here?
Sorry, what are you looking? Oh,
it's
the event attribute.
Yeah, but it's the attribute. So.
The only thing that an event attribute is allowed to have null is message. Really?
Everything else is.
I think everything else happens to be struct, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it is an actual
because it's in an attribute.
It is what?
It is an actual attribute, okay.
Class in an attribute.
Could you check the event keywords? Is it a class or a struct?
Actually, it actually does have to be, right? Because it's in an attribute. So you could put a class there. You could, but you then couldn't specify it and let it be null. It seems like a rather pointless attribute.
Yeah, it would get a refit.
Or if you're wrapping some existing state and you're taking all the constructor parameters in and then...
No, the point is like you put it on the class, right? So you cannot create a compiled down class.
No, so I was saying you could have an attribute that contains a class, but you would require the constructor to take all the parameters to the class's constructor.
Yes.
That way you construct it and then return it.
You could do
Yeah.
that.
It looks.
This is what we do for decimal.
Yeah, but this is
But that's
settable.
abstract.
So.
It looks like it is very, very
You guys do
common
that
to
specifically.
instantiate this attribute without setting the message property. Very common.
It just seems weird that
Yeah,
message is
but
no.
is-
But, yeah.
Yeah.
Is would we say that it's non-nullable and then change the constructor to set it to the empty string? I don't think it's.
I don't think to me.
Doesn't sound painful.
Yeah.
Because null right now means effectively wasn't set. And so you can tell the difference between they set it to empty and they didn't set it. Granted, you can't tell if they set it to null, but why would they do that?
Yeah.
I think it's good as is.
I can't think of a case where you want to set it to no. Like it seems pointless.
While we're on that topic, do we have an attribute that says the return value of a property will never be null, but the setter can take null?
Yep.
Okay.
Around the null center.
So it looks like
Yeah.
null and empty messages are actually treated
delete the
differently
return
by
type
vcallers
without a
when they're
question mark,
reading that
and then
property.
you add a null,
Right.
allow null attribute to the property.
So what's happening is
No, on the setter.
the event attribute
the property.
is being turned into
Allow null is
XML.
for input.
So in the event source, the event attribute itself is being turned into an XML element if and only if the message property returns non-null. The message attribute is written as part of the XML element. Otherwise, it's skipped entirely. So changing the behavior of this property to return empty string will actually change the generated XML.
And if I recall correctly, the way that ETW works is if you don't give a message, it'll look up the message by the ID, and if you do give one, it wins. So we would break diagnostic tracing to the event log.
Yeah.
That would probably be bad.
Yeah, that's
So we should let it say that it can be null.
So event command event args the value on the I dictionary, the arguments.
So which ones? For
The event command event args arguments the value the I dictionary. To the inner something. We should.
Do you think it should be an iDictionary string to string question?
Yeah, strings, comma, string question mark.
Yeah, because we just said we normally allow the value to be null.
Yeah.
Well, like let's double check if it actually is.
You're looking at the arguments property.
Yeah,
right?
Well, and users can set, so since it's not read-only.
In fact, there's even a debug assert in there saying the property is not null.
Maybe they just put the question mark at the wrong spot. Maybe they meant to set it before the closing bracket.
Something possible.
Because that makes more sense than having the whole collection being null. Yeah, let's just record that as.
Well, there is also code that says if there's a do command somewhere that if it sees null, it makes a new dictionary for it. So
Yeah.
something somewhere expects null as a possibility or is just super defensive.
I think, isn't that just lazy instantiation though?
This is event source.do command, which takes in the event args. It has a path in the middle that if it sees arguments, command args arguments is null, then it instantiates it.
Yeah.
So it's lazy initialization by a different class.
Yeah, because it has an internal setter, yeah. Because I'm looking at counter group, and counter group actually debug asserts that the property is not null.
It seems like it doesn't have the explicit constructor, right? Which means by default, if you don't do anything, it will be nullable.
Well, to be fair, Levi, it's asserting it's not null if the command is enable or update.
True.
Yeah. So it may be that it knows that those paths will have assigned metadata.
Yeah.
I mean, this might be a case where we need to assert intent, but event source.send command, which is public, takes the command arguments. It doesn't do any validation on it, and it just passes it all the way through. That's passed into event command args, its constructor, and it's stored into the property.
Okay.
Now that it could be that we're just one of the many cases where we haven't done public argument validation, even though we expect it to be not null. I don't know.
So, Marcus, follow up.
Yeah, I just recorded that.
Yeah, I agree with Christoph's initial assessment that it probably wants to be a dictionary of string to string question marks, but I can't see anything proving one way or the other on that. There aren't a lot of usages.
Yeah.
And they all look to be internal, right?
We should have someone like Brian Robbins.
Yeah, event counter seems fine. Event data attribute seems fine. Maybe should be not null, but probably the same argument as before. Wouldn't be shocked if null and MTL is treated differently here.
I think the name, like there was a different meaning for it was null or not null. It was like in some cases the name is expected to be null, and in some cases not, depending on like the type or something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but I remember something about it. Yeah. This was me.
Your time is glitching on that too. Between 30 and 27.
Certainly looks like it, right? What's happening? Are you dismantling the table?
No, I'm fixing it.
Fixing the table.
It was half open. It's no longer half open.
No, it's half closed. Good.
We don't know that type.
Take
Distracting.
arguments.
Arguments here should probably match up with.
Yeah. I edit that. Right, so then what else do we have? So isn't that also bogus? Didn't we say that param should never be nullable?
Yeah, because the compiler will never pass in null.
But you can explicitly pass it as well.
Yeah, you can, but is that...
But the question is, like, if it already accepts null, is that basically documenting the behavior?
What does the compiler do if it's a string array? With like if this was a string question mark array that's a params and you pass in null, does it treat it as traits is null, or does it pass in a array that contains a single null? I don't remember what the compiler does.
I don't know.
It's a question like, so if you have a params where it's a nullable array and you pass in null, is it going to treat the array as null or treat it as an array?
Whatever we do, it's not going to change from the current behavior.
I think it's an array with a single element, but I'm almost sure about it. But
whatever we do here, it does not change from the current behavior, right? Like you might warn about whatever you're doing.
Object array is more interesting.
Right. So in that case, if you even want to do explicitly pass null, you would have to do traits : null.
Podcast.
Right, so the current implementation explicitly allows null because it delegates from the above constructor to this one with null.
But is that passing an array of null, or is that passing
it's
a null array?
It's passing in null. It's not it. I'll double check, but I'm 99% sure it'll pass in a null array.
Could we not just change that to be empty?
Yeah, I think we should. I mean, that's at least consistent with what we did everywhere else. Everybody else we said
Really,
params are
it's
not
a
null.
protected constructor, so anyone could have derived it and been explicitly passing null down already.
You're not suggesting adding a throw. You're just suggesting making it non-null.
Yes.
Yeah, and basically
But
for
also, yes, Jeremy mentioned this is a protected member, so
well, for back compat, we could just say, if null, then treat as empty, and we could just encourage people themselves to change it.
but
Like,
it still would be nullable for back compat, right?
Well, no, we would mark it non-nullable, and we would encourage people to change their own implementations to pass in. But for back compat, we would say, if null, treat as empty.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Way.
Yeah, because people are going to have to be fixing up their libraries for this, so it's a question of like, do we encourage them to fix up their code, or do we just want to let it work as is?
The PM question.
Oh.
Yeah, I just confirmed it. If you just say null, it treats that as the array, not as a member of the array.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I think the params expansion happens after other things are no longer applicable. And so it treats null the same way as you would have just passed in a correctly typed array.
Okay.
Generate manifest. Looks reasonable.
We return null instead of an empty string if there's no manifest to generate.
I guess. Probably null if null in, right? But probably not as simple as that because almost that never happens when I say that.
Right, because this is an assembly path to include in the manifest, not necessarily the manifest you're generating.
I guess that's true. The trait makes sense. I guess it returns null if the key doesn't exist, or if the value happens to be null. I feel like the command arguments are.
If in generate manifest, if event source type is abstract or any other reason that it doesn't like it, it returns null to say that the type is not valid.
Seems like that probably should have thrown if we were designing it today, but.
Yep.
This is past one.
Just like those right event argument names.
Looks like there's an option. There's this event manifest option thing, and there's a strict member of that. And if it's set to strict, then you end up with exceptions. And if it's not set, then it returns null.
Yeah.
Only we had a guideline that said don't have a member that decides whether or not you throw. Oh, wait.
I don't think we have
member.
members.
Not no.
I think we only have this for parameters, not for member.
Not long one member false.
Yeah, sorry. The flags parameter decides whether or not the method throws.
Oh. So it's okay if I have a property that decides that. Got it.
So two writes take the event name as the non-nullable string, and the generic one takes nullable. I think it's correct, but I can't remember.
So which one are you talking about?
Right, basically the generic versus non-generic event name.
I'm confused. Which part are you talking about?
The event name on the right.
Oh.
Nullable. The right of the.
That does look weird. I'll give you that.
I recall this being correct, but I cannot remember why. So.
Well, what looks weird? Sorry.
The generic right versus the non-generic right. The non-generic right's event name is non-nullable. Generic one is nullable.
The non-generic ones definitely do throw, and source.net isn't following through on where the generic ones go.
The generic one, I'm looking at it, and it falls back into the event info that you pass, like event info.name, if it is not.
This is actually just inconsistent behavior. Right? Okay.
Now documented inconsistency.
Well, no, it is.
This is something we might want to address. Your system cannot decide if it likes sleep seconds or not.
No, I think what's happened is that we're stuck in a time loop reviewing nullable over and over and over again for all eternity.
That would be a hell.
I'm already in an LDM time.
Hell
I don't want to be in an
That's a good
API
hell
review time
definition.
too.
All of you have sinned in the past. That's your punishment.
I watched Groundhog Day for the first time a few weeks ago.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Well, at least
I love
you
that movie.
fixed your sins. It's good.
I have.
Well,
I have
did you like the
atoned.
movie?
I have atoned
The
for my
answer is yes.
sins, and now I'm stuck here.
Exactly. So.
It was actually better than I expected, to be honest. I didn't have high expectations, but I shouldn't admit. Oh god, we're streaming, aren't we? I shouldn't have admitted that.
Yeah.
It surpassed my expectations.
I hate to back up, but on the whatever thing was taking the nullable array as params, I can't find any reason that it's not a array of string question marks. I don't see anything that's walking through a value unsafely.
Was it this the event source constructor?
You mean the traits?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's just down.
I think it's probably a case of it may not be validating it, but what situation would you pass a null trait?
I mean, the problem is that params array is really it's a params string tuple. So it's an even array where half of them are keys and half of them are values, and the half that are values seem to allow null. The half that are keys allow null half the time.
So allow null on even?
Is the attribute expressive enough to allow that?
I mean, we can say that it's degenerate enough that we wouldn't want you to just bang it away, but
This is a case I think where I would say, like, unless we have an example where, or if Brian Robbins tells us that there's actually a case where you would have a null value on purpose, that we start with non-nullable and back off to null if we actually find there's a problem.
Yeah, but I remember the API review for this API when Vance showed the sample code. I think I gave up halfway in because it was a bit weird in the way the traits were passed in, because they were basically key value. It was a bit odd. So that might not be actually an encoding that actually represents intent, regardless of whether null is valid or not. So
yeah, I'm okay with saying it's non-nullable, and then if people complain that they pass null all the time and it totally works in GER, then we can throw in an extra question mark.
something tells me that's not the biggest problem with this API. Don't know why I would say that.
This API.
Double check some strings on
The rest looks pretty consistent.
the right event with the args object array.
That'd be
Possibly
nullable.
the object might be nullable.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
point.
not sure.
It seems a bit weird that we allow null strings, so we don't allow null objects.
It translates null string to empty string.
Okay.
Silly question. Pointers are still allowed to be null, even with nullable annotations.
Correct,
Terminal
yes.
line.
Yeah, we
Correct.
don't.
Okay.
We don't try tracking.
Because we use
So
pointers
Steve,
now,
are you
but
saying that the object should be nullable because we translate this into the string, empty string, right?
No, I'm saying string should be nullable. I think it's correct that the object is not null.
Oh, okay.
You're in unsafe. You're null.
Since it's consistent elsewhere, so
Event source.get trait. Could you go up to event source.get trait?
But Steven, don't you think that's weird to have like the string nullable, but then the object not nullable? Like, I mean, let's say I call the last API that they're passing 3 strings. Now I'm passing the 4th string, and suddenly I can no longer pass in null.
Yeah.
It seems a bit on the weird
I
side.
mean, I'm looking. Hold on a second. I'm looking for the. Where's Corlib?
we can relax in the future if they complain.
We're doing this by another overload that takes 4 arguments. I'm not sure that's the right way of doing it.
We can add it up to 21.
I thought the magic number is 16. That's where we go.
I've seen 21, or like I can remember it was action or something.
I think action is in Funk have 16. Yeah.
Like one of them like had like a really good number, like 21 or something like that. 23.
Those are like generic parameters, right? Not just arguments.
Well, they are basically arguments to the function action, right? Because that's what the generic arguments are.
I mean, yeah, but like you need it. There's no params generic.
No. And in fact, we shouldn't have it. Variable templates are not making it a lot better.
Could you go up to get traits? Get trait?
I can find my mouse again.
Right. So the key is not nullable, but on the implementation, there's nothing that prevents the key from being null.
Sure, but like, do we
That's
want?
probably a bug.
No, it's an explicit if null check.
Yeah.
But
it is doing a comparison of the traits on index I equals key.
So what happens if you pass in null? It's just
but the traits are marked as
if you pass in null, you get null out.
Yeah, so it's effectively just safeguarding instead of throwing it. Just
but like I guess the thing is it allows it.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, like if you write if x equals 9 return null, you bail, right? You just chose not to throw for that case, but
It will never return a useful result if you pass it null.
I mean, given that it doesn't actually use the key to index in null cases, it means that the key can't be null. All right, so then back to the params thing. So Steven is clicking around something, or?
Oh yeah, sorry. It doesn't like null objects.
Really, I was about to say it explicitly checks for null object.
Yeah, but then it returns false.
This is so weird.
It says if the arg is not null, it doesn't match the parameter type, or it's null and it couldn't have been that parameter type.
Right, but when it gets down to processing the event payload, and it does an event payload index does not equal null stuff, else return code equals null input, return false.
Oh, okay. I only made it to log event args mismatches.
I remember discussing the thing.
I mean, double check me, Jeremy. You keep going, but
I'm looking.
All right, I just took a note that it's just inconsistent, and then we can decide to fix it either way, and including won't fixing it. But as I said, not the biggest problem of this API. Event source attribute, GUID localization resources and name. Crispy, a GUID typed a string.
Yeah, because it's an attribute.
I guess it's true. You can't actually.
Yeah, you can't specify the GUID actually.
True.
Or you cannot create a getter.
Yeah.
Different type setter.
Yeah.
That is actually fair.
So event source created event args. Event source has a getter no setter. That seems suspicious, doesn't it?
Well, it's the args.
Oh, it's the thing we looked at earlier. Derp.
It's the. They basically don't expose the constructor that takes them. Which I agree with you is fishy, but. Do I need to see a doctor, or is the screen flickering outside of just this thing at the bottom?
These things are not mutually exclusive.
Have you tried disconnecting and reconnecting?
There's no flicker on the stream, so it must be you, Emo.
Good.
Just today in false dichotomies.
I will certainly take more shots after lunch. Event written, event args, that's also this consistent with very earlier, right? Event name message, we said it's treated differently for null, non-null. Payload is read-only collection of nullable object, and payload itself can be null. That seems unfortunate.
But the names can't be null.
The collection can be, but the individual
The
names
individual,
cannot.
yes, correct.
Again, this is very unfortunate. There might be for perf, but you should be able to do singles.
Jeremy, you might be right in some situations on the event source thing. It looks like depending on how things are configured, sometimes nulls are allowed and sometimes they aren't.
So we are basically partially consistent.
Yeah, we're good.
Right. So it should be object question mark, because the second one means we're not sure.
Yeah, I think this is another case. Let's start with
Documenting reality.
null and.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's weird to pass in nulls here, so let's leave it off, and then if it's a problem, we can add it back.
All right. So the other ones are, I think we are fine with the funcs not being null, I suppose.
I don't like those funcs in general, but they can be not null.
You said it was API review, so those.
Yeah, and I gave feedback that I don't like that we're summing doubles.
Noted.
Why not?
A rounding error.
This doesn't matter in this scenarios, right?
So what? I like that. All right, let me close this. What's happening here? Is there like an instance of
We
API
don't have
review?
fractions we can add, right?
I think
So-
you probably should just unplug and replug your computer.
Or close API review and reopen it.
Oh no, this
There's
is
always
an
a
API
rounding
review.
error.
Yeah, it might actually be one instance of API reviewer is having trouble, but I don't know which one it is. So
Close all of them.
no, that's not.
Well, I don't think it's just API review because your time is messing up too.
Yeah,
I think that's the overlap. That's the overlay because it's like I don't know. What do I know?
nothing apparently.
Ouch. That totally helped.
Yeah, close all of the API reviews.
No, I can't. Like it's a pain in the ass to open them. I'm not doing that. All right, so let's.
Just look for whichever one zoomed to like 140%, it looks like. And has 4 added and 225 unchanged. Something like that.
Oh man,
It does not seem to flicker on the stream now. That's true.
maybe it's too fast.
It's the projector probably.
That's the refresh
It-
rate of the stream.
That might
It
be
might
true. That might be true. Anyway, all right. Reflection emit. We have 10 minutes left. Let's use the time and at least get something done.
For custom attribute builder, why can't you have no args?
The inner object probably should be nullable.
You can have no args, but you have to pass in. You
Okay,
either
yeah.
have to call
It should be object
the
question mark.
overload that doesn't take one.
But there is none.
I'm sorry, no. So right for the other ones, you have to
Did you open
pass
the diff?
non-null
Or did you
if
open
you
the
call
same-
those particular
same?
overloads.
It's a diff.
It looks
Yeah,
like
it
Yeah.
throws if constructor args is null, so you have to
Yeah.
pass args.
But can't the arguments themselves be null
Should be.
as well?
And same for the property values and others.
Yeah.
No, because I think the args are. I see what you're saying. The args.
Calling a
actually-
constructor to pass null, that would be a null value in the constructor args array.
Right. So I'm saying this should be object
Question mark.
question mark array.
We actually do if constructor R is equals null, and then if param types of
Yeah.
I is value type through argument null exception.
I mean,
Right,
yeah,
but that's
like,
for it's of a
that's,
value type. If it's a reference type, it's valid to be null.
True.
that's you
Yeah,
passed an
true.
incorrect
Yeah,
thing
makes
that's
sense.
outside the scope of the nullable.
Yeah.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. So I think several of these should be
Object question mark
array.
array.
Yeah. At least for the ones that take values, because you have no clue whether or not the thing allows null.
Yeah.
Not generic. You can't do it.
And then presumably the constructor you're calling will throw if the input's null and it doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it won't because it's an attribute, and we said those don't throw. So.
Right.
So isn't it actually a bug if it gets a null value and a value type, because that means it should just be nullable, because nullable boxes is null? Apparently it's just never come up.
You can't have nullable in a constructor because that's not expressible as a constant.
I can't take I can't have because custom attribute. Okay.
Right.
Let's try it.
You mean you can't pass null to a constructor?
You not for nullable of X, because that's not.
Or like an in question mark anything?
Yeah, like if you had an attribute that took an in
Yeah,
question mark, that's not valid.
Pretty confident that that's true.
Just testing it real fast to verify. Why not?
Keep going and we'll come back to that one.
Correct. I just tried making an attribute with an int question mark parameter and got a compiler error.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes left, so I mean, I'm not sure it's actually worthwhile doing the rest because we probably might as well just start.
No, because those are all pretty much non-nullable.
Yeah.
So
All of those are structs, right? Well,
most
except
structs
local
must be
builder.
Yeah.
labels is reasonable.
Yeah, so as long as if we believe this one has been done already, then we already have the feedback that custom attribute builders, property values, and constructor args, and presumably whatever's after field info array named fields. Theoretically, all of those should accept null inputs. Because I guess it says there is some change here, so maybe that was just missed. Just wanted to make sure we didn't have that we were looking at a thing that actually hadn't been processed yet.
Yeah.
So there's already cleanup, but we can start at this one again next time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a pretty small one. We might be able to finish it in the next 5 minutes.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Finish it. Let's do it.
Then keep going because I need to write down what we just said.
Or
You have to scroll down. We've already
We
reviewed
can
this.
finish system reflection primitives if you want.
That's fine.
Or what labels? I guess it can't be null because it's a switch.
Right, you have to provide at least one label.
Which one?
The one that takes an array of labels.
And then we can say don't provide any types.
Right, no. You could not provide them.
Could you scroll down again? Emma?
The operators for the label probably. No, because this is started.
Yeah. And parameter name can be null. I'm guessing that's used for positional parameters.
In parameter builder?
Yeah, and then the
constant
default
value can be null.
Yeah.
If you said it can be null.
For add argument, we allow null on this rather than require you to call the one that doesn't take, like we do in the other ones.
What?
So in the custom attribute builder, we said you didn't allow null on the parameter name or on the parameter names and stuff because we required you to call the constructor that didn't have that parameter. But for this one, it looks like we're allowing you to pass in null, and we just treat it as the same as the add argument one that doesn't. it seems like it would be good for consistency's sake to update the former to allow passing in null potentially, and then just forwarding it down.
Which one would that be?
Like, it would be like named fields would allow a nullable array, and then custom attribute builder would forward to the next one, presumably. It's just an inconsistency between the APIs there. Yeah, because all we do is we just invoke a common internal constructor and explicitly pass in empty arrays. The arrays even, rather than array.empty.
Yeah. That seems reasonable. One sec. Oh. All right. So, anything for this one, or should we just leave this as?
No, I think that's consistent with everything.
All right.
Most of it. See you guys.
All right.
Should we schedule something for tomorrow?
We probably should.
So that we finish.
Can't.